سيدنا محمد. خل المقادير تمضي لا تغالبها، فإن من غالب الأقدار مغلوب. إن القضاء لسيف لا يقاومه شيء من الخلق إلا وهو محبوب. وامشي رويدا مع الأقدار في مهل، فإن من يكره الأقدار متعوب. سلم وفوض لحكم الله محتسبا، فإنما الأمر مقضي ومكتوب. والله يقضي بما شاء وكيف يشاء، والعبد عبد ومخلوق ومربوب. ولم يزل ربه الرحمن يكلأه، باللطف والحفظ محفوف ومصحوب. حسن ظنونك بالرب الكريم، ولا تسيء ظنا فتبقى عنه محجوب. واعمل لنفسك أعمالا تسر بها، فكل ما يفعل الإنسان محسوب. إن كان خيرا فخير سوف يحصده، أو كان شرا فتنكيل وتعذيب. يا ويل من ضيع الأعمار في زلل، وكل من كسبه الآثام والحوب. واطلب علوما مع إقبال مع عمل، فأنت بالعلم والأعمال مطلوب. واحذر زمانك هذا إنه زمن، به المناكير شاعت والمعايب. فكن وحيدا فريدا خاملا حذرا، فإن فيه الأقاويل الأكاذيب. والظلم فاش بلا لوم ولا نكر، وللمساكين تخويف وترهيب. فكن لبيتك حلسا لا تفارقه، إلا لشيء له في الشرع تصويب. واذكر إلهك ذكرا دائما أبدا،
بسم الله
فالذكر بالذكر.
لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin our lesson in Mantiq by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we pray that Allah make this lesson and a blessed one, a reason where our sins are forgiven and prayers are answered, inshallah ta'ala. And may Allah open for us any of the doors in of understanding, bless us any with tawfiq and hidayah, ameen, ya rabbal alameen. So inshallah, today we have come into the chapter of Qiyas. So before this, we spoke about Aqs al-Mustawi, and we spoke about Tanaqud, when comes any contradiction and the changing of the subject to the predicate, predicate to the subject, and the changes in the meaning, and how we want to maintain the truthfulness of the meaning, and what are the conditions, and how we go about making contradictions to certain propositions. So today inshallah we will enter into the very important chapter in Mantiq, and this is called the Maqasid, the one of the reason why we learn Mantiq is to study the chapter of Qiyas. In English it can be translated into Syllogism. So Syllogism is about understanding how are we able to form up any arguments, and how it can lead to Burhan, to using any profound evidence to prove the soundness of our argument. So this is the topic that we will enter inshallah ta'ala. In Arabic it is called al-Qiyas. Al-Qiyas. So inshallah ta'ala we will look at the Sullam, what al-Imam al-Akhdari mentioned, Babun fil Qiyas. This is chapter on Qiyas, that is Syllogism. So this Qiyas is different from the Qiyas that we study in Usulul Fiqh. The Qiyas that we study in Usulul Fiqh is carries a different thing altogether. So this is any qiyas mantiqi. Sometimes it is referred in Arabic as al-qiyas al-mantiqi, any qiyas that is used in logic. So we have any qiyas that is used in usul. When we speak about illa, we spoke about asl al-fara'. How are we able to derive from the asl, from the roots, and we get the branch through the common term, and that is the illa. That is any qiyas usuli. This is qiyas mantiqi, with regard to the knowledge of mantiq. So the author began in the chapter by saying, Innal qiyasa min qadaya suwira mustalziman bidhati qawlan akhar. So he mentioned that qiyas, for verily qiyas min qadaya. Qiyas is consists of propositions. Consists of qadaya. Qadaya is what we studied in the chapter of qadaya. It is a proposition, the plural of qadiyya. So when we speak about an argument, or we speak about syllogism, syllogism is made up of premises. In English we call it the premises. In Arabic we call it the muqaddimat. So it is made up of propositions, and these propositions yuntij qawlan akhar, that it is able to bring about a conclusion. So you have a set of propositions that brings about a conclusion. So if you have a set of propositions that can bring about a conclusion, this is the meaning of qiyas. This is the meaning of qiyas. This is a simple explanation. Of course, there are conditions to it, which we will cover later, inshallah ta'ala. So basically, outwardly, this is the meaning. The author is saying that qiyas is made up of qadaya, propositions, mustalziman bidhati, that by those arrangement of the propositions, qawlan akhar, that it is able to bring about qawlan akhar, a conclusion. Tamam. So now we look at examples. We look at examples. So I prepared some simple examples, and the first thing is we will go through the definition of qiyas. As what we understand Sullam is basically a poetry, written in poetry. So now we are going to look deeper. What is the ta'rif? What is the definition of qiyas? So ta'riful qiyas, al-qiyas ibaratun an qawlin min qadaya. So this is the first thing that we mentioned, that qiyas it is propositions. Qawl here meaning proposition, min qadaya, from a set of propositions. It is rukibat, it is arranged with a set of propositions, tarkiban khasan, with a specific type of arrangement, bihaythu tastalzimu lidatiha qawlan akhar, that it is able to bring about a conclusion. So the propositions are arranged in a manner that when you arrange those propositions in that manner, you are able to derive. So it is about derivation. This is we are able to derive the conclusion. The conclusion from those statements or those propositions. So this is the common example in the Arabic language. Before that, the author spoke about there are two types of qiyas. We have qiyas iqtirani, and we have qiyas istisna'i, which inshallah we will maybe later I will speak about it. But these are some of the examples. When we speak about the definition of qiyas, what is the example of qawlin min qadaya rukibat tarkiban khasan bihaythu tastalzimu lidhatiha qawlan akhar, and we mentioned that it is a set of proposition that you can derive from these propositions a conclusion. So this is the example. Al-alamu mutaghayyir. This is the first set of proposition, qadiyya, and this in English we call it the first premise. In Arabic we call it muqaddimatul ula. This is the first muqaddimah. Al-alamu mutaghayyir. What is the meaning of al-alamu mutaghayyir? Maybe I write the translation here. We say the universe is changing. The universe is changing. Al-alamu mutaghayyir. Now this is a proposition. It is made up of subject and predicate. So we have any subject, any that is al-alam. In Mantiq, and we call it the mawdu'. And mutaghayyir, and is the mahmul. It is the predicate of the proposition. So the universe any is changing, and this is any a statement. This is any a statement, and it is a true statement. And the universe and is changing, and in a sense that you have night and day, a movement any of the movement any of the earth, movement any of the clouds, the change any in season. This the coming any of life and death any for beings, and whether it is animals or human beings. Sometimes any we are sick, sometimes any we are healthy. So we are living any in a world any that is subjected any to changes. We witness any these changes. So this is certainly any a true any statement, because when it comes into proposition also, as what we mentioned in the chapter of Qadaya, we speak any about the truthfulness any of the proposition, whether it is a true statement or false statement, because a proposition is something that can accept any truth and false. So it depends any on how any we look any at the contents any of the proposition. So if it coincide any with the reality, we say this is al-haq, this is any the truth. But if it is against the reality, then it is a false any statement. So this gives any effect any to qiyas. So if you bring about any premises any that are truthful, then the conclusion any will also any be truthful. So this any the first part, the universe any is changing, and then the second any premise, wa kullu mutaghayyirin hadithun, and all that changes are contingent. Contingent is hadith, yani something that has a beginning. So the universe any is changing, and all that change and all that change and all that are changing. And all that are changing are contingent. Tamam? Okay, so now when you have any the first muqaddimah, this is any the first any muqaddimah, you have the second any muqaddimah. So what is any the conclusion then? What do we derive any from these two propositions? This is the chapter of Qiyas. This is what any the definition and speaks any about. Tastalzimu lidatiha qawlan akhar. How are we able any to derive the another proposition any which serves as the conclusion any to the two premises? So we say the universe is contingent. So can you see this? For those of you any first time learning this, I hope you can get any to see how are we able any to derive a conclusion out of the proposition. Since any the universe any is changing, and everything that is changing is contingent, then the universe any is contingent. So we say this is qawlan akhar. This is yani the natija. This is the conclusion. Tamam. So this is a simple example. This is a simple example with two propositions. But the thing about qiyas, it doesn't mean that it must be two propositions. Sometimes it can be 10. So 2 is the minimum. There can be no qiyas with one proposition. One proposition is just a qadiyya. It is just a statement. But minimum you need to have two propositions. And if you are able to derive from these two propositions a conclusion, then only we say this is an argument. This is an argument. So an argument must have premises. Qiyas must have muqaddimat. Qiyas must have premises. So we say this is a qiyas. Tamam? This is qiyas. So you have the first premise, second premise, and then you have the conclusion. This is another example. An-nabash akhdhun lil mali khufya. Nabash yani akhdhul lil mali khufyatan. Yani it is taking other people's property silent or secretly. Wa kullu akhdhin lil mali khufyatan sariqun. And everyone that takes money or wealth from others secretly is a thief. Then what is the conclusion? The conclusion, wa kullu sariqin tuqta'u yaduhu. Then all those any who steals, the hand any is cut off, any this is any as a as a punishment. So this is not yet the conclusion yet. This is three premises. So what is any the conclusion? The conclusion is that nabash tuqta yaduhu. Since we say the one any who takes wealth any of others any secretly is a thief, and the thief any the punishment any for the thief any is that the hand any is cut off, then nabash is also the one whose hand any will be cut off any because it carries any the same ruling any as the thief. So how do we get any this conclusion? From derivation. So we derive any from these three premises. We derive any from this premises that an-nabash tuqta'u yaduhu. An-nabash. In the Arabic language, an-nabash it refers any to a person any who steals any the cloth, the kafan. The kafan. You know, like they dig any graves, grave robbers, and in English any we call it any grave robbers. So here any what any the example any is saying any is that the grave robbers any the ruling any of grave robbers any is the same any as the thief, because any the definition any of stealing any is to take any some other else any property khufyatan, yani secretly. So since they are similar in terms of the description, the ruling any follows. So this is an example any of qiyas. So I don't think I need to write it down, because you know, you need to save time. Time any is very any limited. So for those any of you who still any have any difficulty, for the time being any hold on any to this simple any proposition. Tamam. Type then any I give any example. I take an example any which is a false qiyas. This cannot be qiyas. So the thing any about qiyas any is that not all any propositions any can be called qiyas. So there are conditions, and one of the conditions any is that you must be able to derive the conclusion. But if you have a set of propositions any which are not related and you are unable any to derive the conclusion, then it is not qiyas. So let us go through this any example. Kullu insan hayawan. All humans are beings. Any basically living beings. And then wa kullu farasin sahal. All horses make sahal. I do not know what is the translation in English, but it is a sound made by horses. So I just put make sahal. Horses any they have a known sound. That sound any is we call it any sahal. Tamam. Just like dogs any we say nabah, any barking, nabah. Horses any sahal. This is the sound any make any by the horse. I forgot any the English term, but I just put it as sahal. All humans any are being. All horses make any sahal, any make the sound of sahal. So now, is there any relation between the first and the second premise? The first premise any is saying all humans are beings. All humans are beings. There is no issue any with this proposition. There is no issue with this proposition. But then when the second proposition comes, suddenly it speaks any about horses. All horses and it makes sahal. So now there is no connection between the second proposition and the first any proposition. So when there is no connection, you cannot derive a conclusion. You cannot only be saying all humans are beings, all horses make sahal, all humans and make sahal. That is not correct. Yani logically, yani in terms of qiyas, you cannot derive any that kind of proposition. Why? Because it is not any related at all. It is not any related. Type. So this is an example any of you have propositions, but it is not qiyas. It is not qiyas. Why? Because you are unable to derive the conclusion. And then this is another example. La shay'a minal insani bihajarin. None yani from human beings any is a stone. Wa kullu hajar jism. And all stones are a body. So again, the same thing. What you call it? The same thing. We call it any. There is no connection. The first proposition and it speaks any about human beings and stones, and the second proposition and it speaks about stones any as a body. So the first proposition say nothing any from humans any a stone. The second proposition and it say all stones any are a body. So there is no connection. So when there is no connection, and you cannot bring about a conclusion. And likewise, you have any, for example, false any propositions. You have any false any propositions. For example, any I say kullu insan himar. All humans are donkeys. Now this is of course false. False any proposition. All humans are donkeys. Wa kullu himar sahal. Again, any this is any a false any proposition. And all donkeys make sahal. Any again, this is the sound of a horse. Donkey any doesn't make any sahal. Donkey any there is another sound name any to it. So now any we have any two proposition. There is a connection. There is any a connection in terms any of the first and the second proposition, because both any speaking any about donkeys, but both any propositions any are false. So if you have any false any propositions, any the conclusion will also be false. So the conclusion any will be kullu insan sahal. This is any the conclusion. So what does it mean? All any humans make sahal, which is not correct. So now any we say this is not any qiyas. This is not any considered any to be qiyas, even though it is correct any in terms any of the arrangement, but since any it is any from the false any statement, we do not consider this as an argument. We do not consider this any as an argument any that brings about proper conclusions. So this is any basically what is any the meaning any of a qiyas any in the simple sense. So let us any go back any to Sullam Munawraq. The author is saying innal qiyasa min qadaya suwira mustalziman bidhati qawlan akhara. So I believe any there is no issue. So here he is speaking any about propositions, set of propositions any that you are able to derive any the conclusion. And then he mentions summal qiyasa indahum qismani. Then qiyas any there are two types. Faminhu ma yud'a bil iqtirani. So the first type any of qiyas any we have qiyas iqtirani. What is qiyas and iqtirani? He said, وَهُوَ الَّذِي دَلَّ عَلَى النَّتِيجَةِ بِقُوَّةٍ وَاخْتَصَّ بِالْحَمْلِيَّةِ. So qiyas and iqtirani in logic, and we call it deductive any logic. Deductive, and meaning you have any the first premise and you have the second premise, and by the arrangement any of the premise and you derive the conclusion from those proposition. So an example any will be earlier is what any we mentioned. This is any an example of qiyas iqtirani. Al-alamu mutaghayyir wa kullu mutaghayyir hadith al-alamu hadith. The universe is changing and all that are changing are contingent. The universe is contingent. So we are able any to derive any this conclusion any from this set any of proposition by the arrangement any of those proposition, and that it is related. So it is bil quwwa, yani it is by the force of the argument in itself that you are able any to derive the natija. So this is called qiyas iqtirani. Qiyas iqtirani. So it is made up any of a set any propositions any that you can derive the conclusion from. So this is any the first time any that the author yani is mentioning. And then any he mentioned it is specifically any to hamliya, yani propositions and not conditional any sentences, but it is proper yani sentences. فَإِن تُرِدْ تَرْكِيبَهُ فَرَكِّبَ مُقَدِّمَاتِهِ عَلَى مَا وَجَبَ. Then any he speaks any about the muqaddimats. Before any I end any this class any because any of time, let me explain again the term used any in Mantiq in the Arabic language. When they speak any about the premises any of an argument, they call it any the muqaddimats. So this is a first muqaddimatul ula. The first any premise is called muqaddimah ula, the second premise is called any muqaddimah athaniya, and then the conclusion is called the natijah. So the arrangement of the muqaddimah has to be proper when we speak about qiyas and iqtirani, in order for us to get the conclusion. So this is the thing inshallah ta'ala we will cover in our next lesson. We will speak more about the conditions of the arrangement of the premises and how we are able to attain a proper conclusion inshallah ta'ala. We will speak in our next session. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasana fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhaban nar. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.